By space, you can also know the hierarchy. You go to any office, bigger the boss. We got this from rhesus monkey. You know that monkey, species of monkey, they urinate to define their boundary. So whoever urinate for the longest have a bigger boundary. So he's the king. So we build walls. So the point is, the more space you occupy suggests some sort of hierarchical level. Now if you invade in somebody's space, people feel offended. Our house, our cars, our belongings are extension of that space. In Western countries, even if somebody walking down, he looks at your place or room, that is called trespass. इधर तो घर में भी आ जाएंगे. It's a different culture. I'm just pointing out how it is done in different cultures. So the point is, and not only that, this space also where people feel comfortable talking to each other varies from culture to culture. For example, Americans keep about 23 inches distance when talking. French people stand closer, about 13 to 15 inches. Now imagine an American lady in Paris. She is used to what distance? 23. French gentleman. So he will walk closer and say, bonjour, mademoiselle. And she will move away to create that extra 10-15 inches. And he will think that American lady is unfriendly. American lady will think that French gentleman is aggressive. Because they did not know each other's space requirement, the misinterpretation happened. So generally the aggressive gestures, ladies and gentlemen, are in upper part of your body. Assertive gestures are at the waist level, this level. Confidence, this, it is about this level. Non-assertive gestures are below the waist level. Generally in this part of the body, that is the non-assertive gestures. And this is what does it mean? That if you want to be assertive, not only you have to know this, you have to practice this. You have to, in order to become assertive, you need to practice that. And the most beautiful part of it is that once you start practicing, the external part of the body will change the internal automatically by practice. In one class, I just called somebody from the class and made the person stand like this, and I said, how do you feel? He said, I feel very down and depressed. I said, now stand like this, how do you feel? He said, I feel I own this place. So one of the management consultants from the University of California, Los Angeles, she said, I can't believe this, you planted this guy. I said, okay, I planted him, you get your person. She went down in the hotel room, and she brought one of the waitress from the hotel. He said, I'll do it with him. I said, fair enough. So she told the waiter to do the same thing. Stood like that. He said, don't feel right, this, that. Stood like that. Ma'am, I own this hotel. And this is the most powerful thing that I want to appreciate. That by changing something in your posture, you are changing the internal mapping. And it's so easy. So work at your body language. Practice assertive postures. Rest will follow. As I told yesterday when I was talking about body language, I quoted the Gita, verse 54 from 2nd chapter. Krishna in the 2nd chapter is worth repeating, so I'm going to share it with you, people who were not here yesterday. In the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is a Sankhya Yoga, Lord Krishna is talking about Sthita Prajna, man of steady wisdom. And Arjuna is asking, suppose, Lord, I met a man of steady wisdom, how would I recognize him? Sthita Pragnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthitihi kim prabhaseta kimasita vrajeta kim. How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? How can I find out from his body language that this is a man of steady wisdom? In the same way, if you can find out a man of steady wisdom, you can also find out who is non-assertive, who is aggressive, and who is assertive by looking at their postures and gestures. And as I told you, the key is aggressive gestures are above the waist level, assertive gestures are at the waist level, and non-assertive gestures are below the waist level. So recognize this and practice this. one more thing you need to do in order to become assertive. So far I've been talking about the good things. Now one part, a small part of assertiveness training is also devoted to protective skill. The basic purpose, ladies and gentlemen, of assertion is to make your relationship better, make your interaction better, and you will have more friends and more networking ability. That is one part. But there are some people who are out to get you. That happens to be part of the reality of surviving in this world. And as I told you when I talked about the history of assertiveness, I mentioned that the whole thing was talked about, and the program was developed by Dr. Manuel Smith for the Peace Corps volunteers, because these people could not handle questions that put them on the defensive. So now how to deal with such questions? So part of assertiveness, ladies and gentlemen, is also called protective skills. But before I go into protective skills, just want to give you one example, a typical example of a non-assertive person, the person's behavior. I remember this lady who went into a dentist's office, and he said, I want to have my teeth examined. So the receptionist said, go into that room, take all your clothes off. She said, listen, I have come to have my teeth examined, not to have my clothes ironed. He said, listen, no matter what you come, dentist insists this. She said, okay. So we went into the other room, and there was another lady sitting there. He said, some kind of a dentist, I have come to have my teeth examined, I have to take my clothes off. The other woman said, what are you complaining about? I come to pay the bill. So regardless of what demands are made on you, you comply. That's the ultimate in non-assertive behavior. And there are people who do this. They never ask why. So I want you to learn to ask why as to what you do. Learn to ask that question. Learn to stand up for what you believe in. There might be times when you will have to pay the price for it. But yes, is it worth it? The answer is yes. Now, what are the protective skills? So let me talk about the protective skills. First protective skill is known as broken record technique. Before you use any protective skills, please remember that when you're dealing with people who are close to you, pay attention to their feelings, because ultimately you do never want to hurt them. That's number one. Two, ask yourself a question, is issue worth my effort? Is it that important to me? And three, take time out to explain to that person so you don't hurt that person. With this caveat, let me talk about the broken record technique. In broken record technique, you keep repeating the same statement over and over again, just like a pin gets stuck in a record, it repeats it. You always talk about I, not you, don't blame the person and say you. Three, you do not reveal anything about yourself. See, our relationship with other people become better when we run to reveal ourselves instead of superfluous level. At the same time, when you reveal yourself to others, you also become vulnerable. That's why one of the definitions of love is that you are most vulnerable to the person whom you love. Because he has a lot of ammunition on you. Or as the Americans, he got the goods on you. So he can use that against you. That's why we are afraid to share our feelings and hopes and ambitions with other people, because they might ridicule, they might exploit us by knowing that. But if you want to become good in relationship, you learn to reveal yourself and your inner feelings. This is called an unasked, and this is called self-disclosure, which for the other person becomes free information because that person has not asked about it. And this is how the relationship develop and become more profound. But in this protective skills, you do not want to reveal anything about yourself and make yourself vulnerable. So the first one is that you make eye contact, you use I statement, and you do not reveal anything about yourself, and you keep repeating the same statement, and because you're going to repeat, keep the statement simple so you don't forget it. Now let me illustrate this by giving you a case. In 1969, I moved from Iowa to Montreal, Canada. My friends in Montreal told me that if you plan to live here, you need a humidifier. I didn't know what a humidifier was or what it did. I said, why? He said, that's a little machine which spews out moisture in the air, because in Montreal in the month of February, it goes 30 degree minus, below zero. And with the wind blowing, with which they call the chill factor, when you factor that in, it becomes 65 degree below zero, which is cold, very cold. And the air dries out, there is no humidity in the air, so your nose will bleed, your lips will crack, the furniture will crack. So there's a little machine, you put water into it, you plug it in, and it spews out moisture in the air to keep the humidity level. I went to the department store, paid $110 and bought the humidifier. There was a sign on the wall that said, defective warranty period. I made a mental note of it, I came home. I put water in the machine, I plugged it in, the machine would not work. I called up the company, the department store, I said, I got this and it's not working. He says, sir, please bring it within 2 weeks' time, because within the warranty, we'll exchange it or give your money back. I said, I'm going out of town, so I would not be available for next 2 weeks. I'll come during the third week. I'm informing you within the warranty period. He said, that's fair, sir. It's quite all right. Bring it during the third week. Third week I go, person behind the counter. I said, my machine is not working. I want you to exchange it or give my money back. Now this is my broken record statement. Person behind the counter, do you have a bill, sir? So I produce the bill. The person looks at what? The date. See that sign, sir? No, that's not the person who answered my phone, so somebody else at the counter. See that sign, sir? Moment the person says, see the sign, sir, 2 tools of manipulation are used. See the sign, sir, means are you ignorant? Tool of ignorance. 2, you should feel guilty because you're making unreasonable demand. We have announced it on the wall that this is the policy of the company. And you're still making unreasonable demand, therefore you should feel guilty. So 2 tools of manipulation are used just by that particular question. You see that sign? I don't look at the sign because I know what it says. I look at the person, I said, I know what it says. I call within 2 weeks, therefore I want you to exchange it or give my money back. I repeated my broken record statement. Sir, this machine is used, how can we do it? I said, there is no way I can find out whether the machine works or not unless I put water into it. So it technically is not used because it never works. So I want to exchange it or give my money back. Sir, I don't have the authority to do either. So far the person is giving me 3-4 no's in 3 different ways. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, research suggests people generally have a quota of 6 no's. So if you persist, it becomes yes. If you don't believe me, watch any Hindi movies. The heroine says no 6 times and then it becomes yes. So, I said, show me the person who has the authority. So manager comes on the scene. Now managers speak different language than other mortals. So he comes and looks at me and says, what seems to be the problem, sir? It's not what is the problem, what seems to be the problem. Now 2 sentences, ladies and gentlemen, in English language I don't like. This is one, when somebody asks me what seems to be the problem. The second sentence I don't like is, what can I do for you? I remember one time I was to lecture in a university in America, and the guy who invited didn't know who I was. So when I thought I'll go say hello to him, since he was nice enough to invite me. So I had a few minutes extra, I went to his office, and he was working on something. He looked up, he didn't know who I was. He said, yes, what can I do for you? And because of my inbuilt thing about that, I said, sir, you can pay my telephone bill. So he was shocked. He said, what are you saying? Who are you? I said, I'm Rooshikumar Pandya. Oh, Professor Pandya, what is it about telephone bill? I said, sir, you asked me, so I thought I'll suggest something. So he started laughing. He said, I'll never say that again. Another time, another person said that. I said, so I looked at him in very seriously. I said, listen, sir, you give me a list of your capabilities, then I'll decide what you can do for me. So when this person says, what seems to be the problem, I looked at him. I said, no, it doesn't seem to be a problem, Mr. Smith. It is a problem. I know his name because he has a nameplate on it. He doesn't know anything about me. I know a lot about him because the sociological profile of a person working in a department store is public knowledge. He is a high school dropout. He has $237.50 take-home salary after taxes per week. And he lives in a particular area in the town. I know all this. He knows zero about me, plus my skin color will baffle him even more. So this is in Canada, and they are whites and I am blonde. So I know that so he has no way of knowing what I do or what I am. So I said, Mr. Smith, it doesn't seem to be a problem. It is. So he went through this usual notes that the other person did. Then he says, okay, sir, we do this. We will repair this, no cost to you. which means I won in principle. This is known as a working compromise, therefore is acceptable.